My name was Ahmad. I was a politician in Jakarta, a voice of authority in my conservative community. I wore my faith like armor, preaching the values that framed my existence. Respected, feared, yet inside, I was hollow, fighting a silent war between duty and despair. I longed for something more, clinging to spiritual threads that felt increasingly frayed, until one fateful moment in a crowded hall changed everything. That day, as I stood before my audience, the air grew heavy. My words, usually so powerful, faded into the background, eclipsed by a profound emptiness. I collapsed, but this was not the end. It was the beginning of a journey beyond the veil of conscious reality, a near-death experience that led me through shadows, where I encountered a light blinding enough to dim my worldly beliefs. And there, in that desolate wasteland, I heard him call my name, Jesus. He spoke with an authority that cut through my confusion, unraveling the intricate lies I had woven around my identity and faith. He revealed that the chains binding me were not just my own, but part of a greater struggle, a spiritual battle played out not just in my heart, but across our very societies. An unseen war where truth and deception dance perilously close under the guise of tradition and power. And when I returned to my body, everything changed. Rejection became my constant companion, family turned their backs, and my community labeled me a traitor. I was torn between guilt and a newfound clarity, a clarity that urged me to seek the truth, to open the pages of a book once forbidden to me, and to uncover the promises I had never dared to dream were mine. As I embarked on this hidden quest, I found a glimmer of hope in others like me. Ex-Muslims, seekers of truth, gathered to share their own stories of transformation. Suddenly, the journey was not just about me. It was about a calling much greater. I now carry within me the urgency to share my encounter, spreading the word that the voice of Jesus can pierce through the darkest corners of belief and fear. Before we dive deeper into this incredible testimony, I invite you to comment below. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? I want to connect with each one of you on this journey. And if you too are craving truth, if you feel that pull towards something greater, subscribe to Truth from Beyond. Don't miss what lies ahead, because my experience is just the beginning of a revelation that could change lives forever. In a conservative neighborhood of Jakarta, Indonesia, where the weight of tradition rests heavily on every decision, I lived a life shaped by the strict Islamic practices that surrounded me. As a respected 35-year-old politician, I should have felt fulfilled. I was expected to embody the traditional values that governed our society, projecting an image of unwavering dedication to my faith. Yet despite this facade of success, I grappled with a profound inner void. My heart felt heavy, overflowing with questions that seemed too dangerous to voice. I felt trapped, like a bird in a gilded cage, surrounded by expectations that stifled my spirit. One evening, as I stood before my constituents during a speech, the pressure to conform felt suffocating. I am not sure what happened next, whether it was a moment of fatigue or divine intervention. Mid-sentence, I faltered. I felt darkness close in, as if the air had been knocked from my lungs. Suddenly, the world around me faded, and in that instant of slipping away, I found myself in an expanse that felt both familiar and foreign, an otherworldly desert bathed in golden light. The shift was surreal, and before I could comprehend what was happening, I was face to face with Jesus. His presence radiated love and compassion, utterly disarming me. As he spoke, I felt the weight of every doubt, every fear, and every regret pour out of me. "Ahmad," he said, his voice gentle yet powerful, "you've been wandering in the darkness of deception. It's time to awaken." With every word, a revelation unfolded, illuminating truths I had long overlooked. He revealed how the elite, driven by hidden agendas, manipulated our beliefs and perpetuated a cycle of spiritual oppression that affected countless lives. I glimpsed the invisible battles waged against those yearning for truth, immersed in the throes of a spiritual war one hadn't realized I was part of. As Jesus continued to speak, the layers of my upbringing began to unravel. The revelation of societal structures that suppressed authentic connection resonated deep within my soul. I saw how fear and division served as tools to maintain control over the masses, preventing true spiritual growth and understanding. My existence, steeped in rigid adherence to tradition, suddenly felt like a prison. I witnessed how many were entangled in these invisible chains, desperately searching for meaning and truth, amidst the noise of dogma that drowned out the divine messages waiting to be heard. But as swiftly as this vision appeared, darkness threatened to reclaim me. I felt a pull, a gentle tug back toward consciousness, yet I wanted to linger in this sacred space. I understood the importance of sharing what I had learned, of awakening those still trapped in the narratives that held them captive. Yet a gnawing fear gripped me. How would my family and community react to the truths I was prepared to unveil? What would happen if they discovered my belief in Jesus? Would they label me a traitor, rejecting everything I had ever known? My heart raced as I grappled with the reality that my awakening could come at a tremendous cost. Just moments before awakening, I felt a surge of determination. I understood that this revelation was not solely for my benefit. It was a call to action. I could not remain silent in the face of such profound truth. The path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I felt a newfound strength coursing through me. The urgency to advocate for love, compassion, and spiritual freedom fueled my resolve. As I returned to the conscious world, I knew I was embarking on a mission to confront the deception and share the light that had pierced my darkness. This was just the beginning of an incredible journey I was ready to embrace. During the moments of prayer that punctuated my busy life as a politician, I often found myself engulfed in a profound emptiness. It was a feeling I couldn't quite articulate, one that lingered like a shadow lurking just out of sight. I recited the words with devotion, yet they felt increasingly hollow as I wrestled silently with doubts about the very principles I had always upheld. The weight of expectation felt crushing. I was supposed to embody tradition and serve my community as a devout Muslim, yet inside I felt fractured. This conflict tore at the seams of my spirit, leaving me restless and searching for something more substantial than the routines I had come to know. In the stillness of night, I began experiencing unsettling dreams that ignited my deepest fears and uncertainties. Each night they unfolded vividly before me, blurring the lines between reality and something seemingly greater. They depicted familiar faces, people I respected, yet in these dreams, they were distorted by deception. I saw leaders I had long admired revealing hidden agendas shrouded in darkness, manipulating the very fabric of our society. The images haunted me throughout the day, amplifying my doubts regarding the religious leadership I had always followed blindly. I felt as if my subconscious was screaming for me to open my eyes to the truth that lay beneath the surface, a truth I had always been too afraid to confront. The dreams served as a catalyst, igniting a fire within me that needed to be stoked. As I led my public life, the facade I maintained felt increasingly unbearable. I questioned how many others within my community shared these feelings of emptiness, how many were wrestling with the same uncertainties while keeping up appearances. Every prayer I offered felt like a plea for guidance, not just for myself, but for those around me who might also be trapped in chains of tradition, unaware of the spiritual war that was subtly waged against us. It was as though I was in the midst of a great deception, a grand illusion that sought to keep us comfortably numb while the elite controlled the narrative. Then one fateful day during a speech, everything began to change. I stood before a crowd, the weight of expectation heavy on my shoulders. As I spoke, words about faith and unity flowed from my lips, but suddenly, I found myself gripped by a vision, a realization that swept over me like a tidal wave. In the midst of my address, the image of Jesus appeared within my mind, encompassing me with a radiant light, breaking through the layers of darkness that had clouded my heart. I felt a connection, a whisper urging me to share my truth, and the urgency of the revelations that had come to me in my dreams. I understood in that moment that my doubts were not mere fleeting thoughts. They were invitations to awaken, to step into a new reality. In the days that followed, the weight of this revelation became both a blessing and a burden. The truth I felt compelled to share was now entwined with an internal struggle. How could I express the awakening that had transpired within me? I was acutely aware of the risks involved, potentially losing everything familiar, facing rejection from the community I had been a part of my entire life. Each time I allowed myself to ponder this reality, I wrestled with the fear of abandoning my traditions versus the desire to pursue the truth revealed to me. I knew Jesus had called me to emerge from the shadows, to confront the deception plaguing both my spirit and the world around me. Yet the shadow of fear loomed large, threatening to silence the voice that urged me to act. As I stood at the podium, delivering what I believed to be a powerful political speech, everything shifted in an instant. The weight of tradition felt heavy on my shoulders, yet I was determined to convey hope and unity to my constituents. But beneath the polished words lay an underlying discontent gnawing at me. I felt the pressure of my dual existence, my public role as a respected politician and my private battles with faith and truth. Suddenly, the world around me began to blur. Colors faded into darkness, and the last thing I remember was a sharp pain radiating from my chest before everything went black. When I regained consciousness, I was enveloped by an expansive, dark desert. It was eerie and silent, unlike any place I had ever seen. The ground beneath me felt gritty, and the night sky stretched endlessly above, devoid of stars. I stumbled forward, disoriented and fearful, and that's when I saw it, a brilliant light illuminating the horizon. It beckoned me, a beacon of hope amidst the darkness. As I drew closer, the light intensified, forming the figure of Jesus. I felt an overwhelming presence of love and peace wash over me, and I knew instinctively that I was in the presence of the divine. In that sacred moment, Jesus called my name. His voice resonated deep within my soul, filling the air with warmth and compassion. As I stood there, overcome with emotion, he began to speak, revealing truths that had long been hidden from me. "Ahmad," he said, "you've been living under the weight of deception. The structures of religion and politics you trust are often veils that obscure the truth." He showed me visions of the world, unveiling the hidden agendas of the elite, the manipulation and control exerted to divide and conquer. The realization struck me like a lightning bolt, illuminating paths I had never considered before. With these revelations came a sense of urgency. I watched as Jesus illustrated the spiritual war raging in the hearts of individuals, a battle between enlightenment and ignorance. He revealed how societal divisions were crafted to keep us chained, to keep us afraid and compliant. My dreams of unity and progress, once fueled by optimistic rhetoric, were shattered by the stark reality of manipulation pervading our institutions. I felt the weight of this knowledge pressing down on me, yet it also filled me with a fierce resolve. I understood that my life, my voice, my very essence could be a force for change. But then the visions shifted, showing me the devastating consequences of inaction. I stood at the crossroads, torn between the safety of silence and the perilous path of truth. I could return to the comfort of my familiar life, but at what cost? The thought of my family and community, likely angered by my newfound beliefs, gnawed at my conscience. I envisioned the rejection, the isolation, and the tumult of personal upheaval. Yet I recognized that these fears were simply echoes of the very deception Jesus spoke of. My commitment to integrity and truth had to prevail over the fear of abandonment. With a profound sense of determination ignited within me, I resolved to embrace the path laid before me. The encounter with Jesus wasn't merely a personal awakening. It became a calling to confront the world's deceptions, and to expose the truth that had eluded so many. I would share my story, warning others of the hidden agendas at play and the spiritual war we were all a part of, whether we realized it or not. As the light began to fade and I felt myself pulled back toward consciousness, I knew I had a mission to fulfill, a mission that was just beginning. When I opened my eyes, the world felt starkly different. The familiar hum of the bustling Jakarta streets faded, replaced by a deafening silence. I had emerged from darkness into a reality that now felt alien and cold. The first thing I encountered was not sympathy or relief, but scorn. The faces of my family and community that once bore warmth now looked upon me with disdain. They labeled me a traitor, a defector from our shared values. The very people who had stood by me in my rise as a politician now distanced themselves, leaving me isolated in the aftermath of my transformation. It was as if they could smell the change within me, the questions that stirred in my heart like a storm waiting to break. The guilt weighed heavy on my conscience like an anchor pulling me down. While I had found a glimmer of truth in my encounter with Jesus, the cost felt steep. I ached for the approval of those I loved, but I also felt the undeniable pull towards awakening, a need to explore the revelations I had received. Each day was a battle against my own convictions. How could I challenge the very faith that had provided the foundation of my life? I was torn between two worlds, one that expected unwavering loyalty and another that offered the promise of liberation. The spiritual war within me raged with increasing intensity, amplifying the doubts and fears that clouded my mind. As I navigated through my pain, unsettling dreams began to plague my nights. In these dreams, I revisited the darkness of that desert I had encountered during my near-death experience. I felt the same warm presence of Jesus, but I also confronted my fears, the fear of abandonment, of being misunderstood, of losing a life built on tradition. He urged me to confront the deception that cloaked my heart and to see beyond the facades of the elite who manipulate society's narratives. I knew there were those who, just like me, were silently battling their own doubts, and I felt compelled to speak out, to share the truth I had found. However, the thought of revealing my newfound beliefs sent chills down my spine. What if I stood before my community and shared my testimony only to be met with rejection? The strategies employed by the elite to maintain control over those who dared to deviate from the norm haunted my thoughts. The weight of expectation pulled at me, shackling me to an identity I no longer felt aligned with. Even as I craved to share the awakening within me, the shadows of fear clouded my heart, fortifying the walls I had been raised to uphold. Each step forward felt daunting, yet each moment of hesitation fueled my inner conflict. In the stillness between my breaths, I realized the urgency of embracing the truth outweighed the fear of rejection. I had tasted the awakening, felt the call of Jesus penetrating the darkness I had lived in for so long, and I knew it was time to act. The thought of becoming a voice for those still trapped in the shackles of deception ignited a fire within me. It wouldn't be easy. There would be consequences. But if I chose silence, I would contribute to the very narrative that oppressed so many. Each revelation filled me with a determination to speak, to risk everything for the sake of those still searching for hope. The world around me might dim, but the light of truth was a flame that I refused to extinguish. In the darkness of my room, I began my secret exploration of the Bible. Each page I turned felt like a clandestine act of rebellion against the teachings I had adhered to my entire life. The very essence of what I had believed was now being meticulously examined. I found solace in the stories of conversion I discovered online, testimonies from people who had also journeyed through doubt and emerged on the other side carrying the light of truth. These individuals shared their own spiritual awakenings, each story resonating with my struggles and hopes. As I listened to their accounts, I felt a flicker of renewed peace, a flame beginning to spark within me, a flicker of hope in a world shrouded in deception. Navigating this new path was fraught with danger. I was acutely aware of the risk I was taking by exploring my faith in Jesus amidst the oppressive atmosphere of my conservative Muslim community. The fear of losing everything I had built, a promising political career, my place in my family, and the respect of my peers, was ever present. Yet, despite those fears, my heart yearned to know more. I knew the stakes were high, but the allure of truth became too powerful to resist. My deepening sense of isolation was accompanied by a growing urgency to connect with others who shared similar experiences. Individuals who understood the struggles of questioning everything we had been taught. Eventually, I stumbled upon a support group formed by former Muslims who had embraced Christianity. Joining them felt like stepping into a sanctuary, a safe haven where vulnerability was met with understanding and acceptance. Through whispered conversations and shared prayers, I felt a profound sense of camaraderie grow among us. Each gathering was laced with stories of awakening, reinforcing our collective experiences of the spiritual war we were all engaged in. Battles fought not with weapons, but through revelation and perseverance. We talked openly about the hidden agendas of the elite and how they sought to shape narratives that kept us in darkness, amplifying our feelings of disillusionment. As I prayed alongside my new friends, he began to reach out to Jesus in a way I never had before. My heart poured out in supplication, longing for understanding and connection. The moments of prayer became a lifeline, a way to identify and confront the deception that had clouded my soul for so long. With each prayer, I felt the layers of guilt peeling away, replaced by a profound sense of freedom I had never known. I began to realize that the principles I had upheld were often flawed by the very structures meant to maintain control over our lives. This awakening fueled my desire to spread the truth, to share the light I had found and guide others toward liberation. But beneath the surface of this newfound peace lay a persistent tension, a mixture of hope and dread. Would I be able to maintain my newfound faith without losing everything? The faces of my family and community haunted me, reminding me of what I stood to lose. I wondered if they could ever understand the love and truth that I had found in Jesus, or if they would forever view me as a traitor to our shared heritage. Despite this turmoil, the flame of awakening continued to burn within me, igniting the courage to face an uncertain future. I knew I was on a path of transformation, and with every step, I felt more committed to breaking the cycle of deception that had ensnared so many, including myself. As the weight of my experience settled in, it became increasingly clear that this wasn't merely a personal transformation, but a divine calling. My encounter with Jesus during that pivotal moment wasn't just a fleeting vision. It was an awakening that urged me to share the truth I had received. The revelations I experienced felt like shattered glass scattering around me, each shard glistening with profound insights about the nature of our world. I realized that I had been blessed with foresight, a glimpse into the spiritual war being fought not just within my soul, but in the lives of countless others who remain blissfully unaware. Every conversation I had after that day felt steeped in urgency. I could see the hidden agendas laid bare before me, like an intricate web spun by those powerful elites who perpetuate deception to maintain control. It was as if I had been granted special glasses that allowed me to see the strings being pulled behind the curtains of our society. This truth weighed heavily on my heart. I felt compelled to warn my fellow citizens, to urge them to awaken from their slumber before it was too late. The tension I faced was palpable, a mixture of hope and fear taking root in my being. Doubt crept in, though, stifling my resolve. How could I challenge the very structures that had supported my entire life? I thought of my colleagues, my friends, and my family. Would they understand the awakening I had experienced? Would they embrace the truth, or would they turn away, branding me a traitor? The fear of isolation and rejection loomed heavily. But the love I felt from Jesus, a love transcending the limitations of human understanding, fortified my determination. I knew I had to speak out, to enlighten those still trapped in the clutches of deception. Through every sleepless night, I dove deeper into prayer, seeking guidance to deliver the message with grace and compassion. I found comfort in Scripture, drawing strength from the teachings of Jesus that resonated with my soul. The spiritual war raged around me, manifested in the indifference and fear displayed by those who remained skeptics. With every prayer, I felt an urgency build inside of me, a calling to stand firm, to break the chains that had held me captive and invite others into the light of enlightenment. I felt driven to share my story, to let the world know that hope and truth await those brave enough to seek. Connecting with others who had experienced their own awakenings became a lifeline for me, reinforcing the understanding that I wasn't alone in this battle. Our gatherings were fraught with tension and excitement as we shared our experiences, fostering an environment where vulnerability thrived. With every testimony shared, I felt my resolve crystallize. I understood that we were presented with a pivotal moment, a chance to illuminate the path for others still wandering in darkness. The weight of the world felt pressing, but as we united in purpose, the promise of awakening transformed our fear into a collective strength, ready to challenge the forces of deception that sought to keep us divided and unaware. In a powerful act of liberation, I made the decision that would forever alter the course of my life. Leaving my home felt like tearing away a part of my very identity, yet the weight of truth pressed against me, urging me to embrace the journey ahead. I changed my name, shedding the ties of my past like an old skin. I could no longer go by the name that echoed my former life, a life defined by strict adherence to traditions that had become shackles rather than support. As I ventured into the vast desert, I felt an exhilarating mix of fear and anticipation. The desert was both a physical landscape and a metaphor for my inner struggle, an empty expanse where I sought the essence of my newfound faith. The sun blazed overhead as I traversed the sandy dunes, each step carrying me further from the person I once was. I began clandestinely evangelizing to those I encountered, sharing the transformative love of Jesus that had become my guiding light. Each conversation was laden with urgency, as if the very fate of those I spoke to hinged on my words. The revelations I had experienced offered compelling insights into the spiritual war we are all engaged in, a battle far deeper than most realize. I felt compelled to plant the seeds of awakening in the hearts of others, igniting a spark that could awaken them from the slumber of ignorance. But as I shared my message, anxiety clawed its way back into my heart. I felt the invisible threat of a hidden agenda looming over my mission, the fear that my newfound freedom could easily be snuffed out. The elite, those who thrive on division and deception, were never far from my mind. Their influence seeped into the very fabric of our societies, manipulating narratives that kept people trapped in a cycle of fear and control. I was acutely aware that exposing the truth jeopardized not only my safety, but also the lives of those who joined me in this journey. Yet, the deeper the truth unfolded before me, the more resolute I became in my commitment to spread the light I had found. In the stillness of the desert nights, surrounded by the vast emptiness, I often prayed, seeking guidance and strength. Each prayer connected me more deeply to Jesus, allowing me to feel His presence wrap around me like a blanket of comfort. I felt emboldened in my mission, knowing that I was not alone in this fight. The spiritual war was real, and every moment spent in prayer fortified my resolve to take a stand against the darkness that threatened to envelop us all. I understood that this was more than a personal journey. It was a calling to confront the deceptions that kept others in the shadows, just as I had been. As I plunged deeper into this path, the tension of my dual existence grew heavier. I had left behind the familiarity of my past, yet I still grappled with the fear of what lay ahead. Was I prepared to face the consequences of my choices? The revelation I had received demanded not just faith, but action, and I felt the weight of my responsibility to those still ensnared in the lies perpetuated by tradition. I was determined to be a voice for the voiceless, a beacon of hope for those yearning for liberation. With every person I spoke to, I felt the awakening in myself strengthen, pushing me closer to the realization that this journey was not solely about me. It was about igniting a movement, a spiritual awakening that could challenge the very structures designed to keep us all in darkness. Years later, I now find myself in a refuge away from the chaos of the past, surrounded by those who understand the gravity of the spiritual war we're engaged in. This space has become a sanctuary where I can continue my mission, sharing the truth of my experience and helping others navigate their own journeys of awakening. Each day is a reminder of the transformation that took place after my encounter with Jesus, a moment that shifted everything and set me on a path I could never have imagined. I've dedicated my life to spreading the message that liberation is possible, even amidst the storm of rejection from my family and community. In this refuge, I connect with individuals who have experienced their own crises of faith, all grappling with the deception that is so prevalent in our world. We gather to share our stories, to breathe life into the truth we've uncovered, and to support one another in our walks with Jesus. It's a powerful experience that reinforces the strength of our collective journey. I see so many who have lived under the weight of hidden agendas, bound by fears instilled in them since childhood. Each testimony serves as a reminder that awakening isn't just about leaving behind old beliefs. It's about embracing the unknown with courage and faith. Despite the solace I find here, my heart still aches for my family. I think of my parents and the community I once held dear, now estranged from me because of the path I chose. I hope that one day they'll understand the truth I've found, hope and love that transcend religious labels and societal expectations. Deep down, I believe that reconciliation is possible, that they too can awaken to the love of Jesus. But until that day comes, I carry the weight of their rejection. In my prayers, I ask for strength to remain steadfast in my mission, while holding on to that dream of reunion. The revelations I experienced during my spiritual transformation continue to inform my approach to life. I see the manipulation by the elite more clearly now, the deceptions played on society as a whole. These insights fuel my desire to advocate for those still trapped in false realities. I often speak to groups about the urgent need to challenge the narratives that divide us, to recognize the forces at play in our political systems and societal structures. Each conversation is a seed planted, each whisper of truth, a battle cry against the dark, unseen forces that work to keep us in fear and compliance. As I press on in this fight, the call of Jesus resonates in my heart, a constant reminder of the love that breaks through barriers and binds us together in hope and truth. I know the road ahead may be fraught with challenges, but the urgency of this mission ignites a fire within me that cannot be extinguished. The awakening I've experienced has reshaped my destiny. I've chosen to live fearlessly in the face of adversity, embracing the spiritual war with the knowledge that I stand not alone but alongside all who are ready to heed the voice of truth. This journey is not just mine, it's a communal awakening, a stepping stone towards a future where liberation and love prevail over deception and division. Now that you've walked this incredible journey with me, I want to pause and reflect on something profound. Have you ever felt the tug of truth pulling at your heartstrings, urging you to confront the hidden agendas that shape our reality? It's easy to feel lost amidst the noise of tradition and fear, but know this: there is a deeper purpose, a divine calling woven into the fabric of our lives. My encounter with Jesus wasn't just a momentary experience. It was a catalyst that ignited an urgency within me to unveil the truth behind the shadows that bind us. I stand before you today, not just as Ahmad, but as a voice for the countless souls seeking liberation from the chains of deception that hold our communities in darkness. We are all part of a vast spiritual war, one that demands our awareness, courage, and commitment to love. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a moment, a whisper, a dream, or perhaps an unsettling revelation that compelled you to question the beliefs you've held dear? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your voice matters. Together, we can illuminate paths of awakening and offer solace to those still searching for truth. And if this message resonates in your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Truth from Beyond and hit that notification bell. It's crucial, because what's coming next promises to delve deeper into the truths that can transform our lives. This journey is only beginning, and each of us has a role to play in reclaiming the light. As we close this chapter, I invite you to join me in seeking hope beyond the barrier of fear. And in the next video, we'll explore another powerful testimony, a story of discovering faith amidst doubt. I'm Ahmad. Thank you for being here with me. And remember, the pursuit of truth is a shared journey, and together we can uncover the light hidden within our darkness.